Carla Bruni's life reads like the plot of a scandalous movie. Born into a world of luxury and secrets, she started her career as a model with nothing but raw charisma and a Paris Metro pass. By the late 80s, her face was everywhere, on the covers of magazines, walking for the biggest designers, and even becoming the muse for rock stars and presidents. But it wasn't just about the beauty or the fame. Behind the allure was a woman who defied expectations, navigated scandals, and made a dramatic leap from the runway to the Élysée Palace. But with every rise, there's a fall. So, how did this icon go from international supermodel to the center of one of France's most controversial presidencies?
We are back with more of Today on this Tuesday, and that is the lovely voice of singer and former First Lady of France and songwriter. Never before we've said those three words.
I like them all together.
Singer, songwriter, former First Lady of France.
Over the past 20 years, our next guest went from the cover of Vogue as an international supermodel to the presidential palace in France as the First Lady. Take a look.
Carla Bruni was born into a life most of us could only dream of, a world of elegance, wealth, and art. Growing up in a family where her father, Alberto, was an industrialist and a classical composer, and her mother, Marisa, was a concert pianist, it seemed like she had everything. She lived in a grand Italian estate surrounded by art and music and attended the best schools. But for all the beauty and privilege, there was a certain emotional distance. Her parents, wrapped up in their high-profile world, didn't spend much time with her. It was a kind of luxury that didn't feel quite like home. This distance was only magnified when, at the age of 28, Carla learned a shocking truth. Her biological father wasn't who she thought he was. When her father, Alberto, was dying, he revealed to Carla that he wasn't her real father. Instead, her biological father was Maurizio Remer, a classical guitarist from a wealthy touring family. The revelation didn't hit Carla as a betrayal. In fact, it felt like a missing piece of the puzzle finally fell into place. It explained so much about her identity, and while her mother didn't deny it, Carla understood that for her parents, appearances mattered more than truth. In 1975, Carla Bruni's world was turned upside down when her family fled Italy, escaping the growing political violence and instability of the Red Brigades. The once peaceful, privileged life they had known in Italy quickly became a dangerous reality, with kidnappings and threats hanging over their heads. So, they packed up their lives and left behind everything they knew, moving to Paris, where they started over in a foreign land. Adjusting to life in Paris wasn't easy for Carla. She was suddenly a stranger in a city that seemed so different from the glamorous world she had come from. While her family tried to settle into this new chapter, Carla followed the traditional route, attending school, focusing on architecture and art, doing what was expected of her. But deep down, she felt restless. She didn't want to be confined to a safe, predictable life. Paris, with all its beauty and history, inspired her, but it also made her realize she longed for something more than the life of a well-behaved, privileged young woman. At just 19, Carla Bruni wasn't following any traditional path to fame. She wasn't a seasoned model with a photo book full of glossy headshots. She was a university student with a burning desire to break free from her privileged life, and she had one thing on her side: raw charisma. With little more than her Paris Metro pass and a tiny ID photo, she walked into City Models, a boutique agency that had already helped launch the careers of some big names in the fashion world. No manager, no connections, just Carla's presence, a magnetic energy that seemed to demand attention. The moment Carla stepped into the agency, Louise Dupont, the founder of City Models, knew she had something special. It wasn't just her beauty, it was the way she carried herself, effortlessly cool and completely in control. It only took one meeting and one photo shoot with a top Paris photographer for the world to start taking notice. The phone call that followed? "You were right," the photographer said, confirming what everyone in that room already knew. Carla was destined for greatness. Carla Bruni's rise to fame didn't come from some fancy connections or a polished portfolio. It all started with a single ad for Guess, a brand that was known for launching the careers of supermodels like Claudia Schiffer. But Carla? She wasn't yet a household name. When the brand's creative director, Paul Marciano, spotted her in a pile of model photos, he knew she had something different. There was something about her presence in front of the camera that felt magnetic. More than just beauty, there was control, an air of mystery that demanded attention. After her Guess campaign, doors flew open. Suddenly, the fashion world couldn't get enough of her. Designers like Versace, Chanel, and Dior wanted her on their runways, and she didn't just walk these shows, she owned them. Her effortless elegance combined with her boldness set her apart from the sea of models at the time. Carla didn't just wear the clothes, she became the embodiment of them, a symbol of the kind of power and sophistication many designers craved. Carla Bruni was never one to follow the rules, especially when it came to love. Her life was defined by her boldness, not just in her career, but in the relationships she pursued. From rock stars to presidents, Carla never shied away from a challenge, whether it was in her professional life or her personal one. Her relationships became a public spectacle, feeding the tabloids with headlines that often overshadowed her actual accomplishments. Take Eric Clapton, for example. When Carla met the legendary guitarist in the late 80s, she was already rising as a top model. Their romance wasn't just a fleeting fling, it was intense, passionate, and very public. The two were inseparable for about 2 years, with Clapton calling her the love of my life. Yet for all their shared moments in the spotlight, Carla was always a force unto herself, never fully playing the role of the doting girlfriend. She kept her independence, and when it was time to move on, she did, without much drama. The breakup wasn't a tearful affair, but more like a quiet shift. Clapton's heartbreak wasn't enough to hold Carla back from her own ambitions. Soon after, she met Mick Jagger, and their connection was undeniable. The chemistry between them was magnetic, but it didn't come without its fair share of complications. While Jagger was still married to Jerry Hall, Carla and Mick's affair started quietly, away from the prying eyes of the media, but in true Carla style, she couldn't keep it under wraps forever. Their relationship became the stuff of tabloid legends. When they were spotted together in Thailand just days after Hall gave birth to their third child, the scandal exploded. The press was relentless, and the drama reached a boiling point when Jerry confronted Carla directly. But Carla, ever the enigmatic figure, refused to apologize. She didn't confirm or deny anything. She simply let the gossip swirl around her like a halo. For Carla, love was always about more than just affection. It was about power and independence. She wasn't interested in playing the traditional role that society expected of her. She sought out relationships that were intense, complicated, and often scandalous. And why wouldn't she? After all, she had grown up in a world that was just as filled with secrets and intrigue as the one she later navigated in her personal life. She was always one step ahead of the game, never afraid to challenge conventions, but nothing could prepare the world for the turn her life would take in the early 2000s. By then, Carla had become a woman who was known not just for her beauty, but for her mind, her artistry, and her relentless drive. In 2007, she found herself in the midst of yet another public spectacle, this time with none other than the president of France, Nicolas Sarkozy. Their relationship, which blossomed quickly, made headlines for all the right reasons, or rather, all the wrong ones. Carla, the supermodel turned musician, was now dating the leader of France. The pairing was controversial from the start, but it was also electric. Sarkozy was freshly divorced, and the couple was instantly a media sensation. The affair was so fast and intense that within a few weeks they were married. The world watched as Carla transitioned from being the ultimate muse to becoming the First Lady of France. She was no longer just a model or a singer. She was now a symbol of French political life. But even as she embraced this new role, the rumors didn't stop. In fact, they only grew louder. From her nude photos resurfacing at the height of her political ascent to the constant media scrutiny of her wealth and image, Carla was no longer just the subject of admiration. She was a figure of controversy, a walking contradiction of elegance and scandal.
France's First Lady is stepping up into the spotlight. Carla Bruni Sarkozy has become the first ambassador to the Global Fund. By doing so, the 40-year-old supermodel turned singer is embracing her role as First Lady more than ever before.
Carla Bruni's journey from supermodel to the French First Lady was as glamorous as it was controversial. When she married Nicolas Sarkozy in 2008, the world watched with bated breath. She wasn't just a model-turned-singer. Now she was a figure at the heart of French politics. But with the spotlight came the weight of public scrutiny, and for Carla, that was only the beginning. Just before her first major state visit to the UK, a nude photo of Carla from her modeling days resurfaced. It was sold at auction for a staggering $91,000. And just as she was about to meet the Queen, it splashed across British tabloids. Critics couldn't resist making her the center of scandal, with headlines mocking her past and suggesting that the First Lady's fashion wasn't the only thing getting attention. But what did Carla do? She took it in stride. When she landed in London for the state visit, She stepped off the plane in Dior, looking as composed as ever. She wore her elegance like armor, brushing off the controversy. Yet, the press didn't stop there. Her wealth, her style, her foundation, it was all under constant fire. Carla's role as the First Lady was tangled with media critiques of her lavish lifestyle and the extravagant nature of Sarkozy's presidency. Critics relentlessly questioned the costs of her charity work, particularly after it was revealed that the website for her foundation had cost over 400,000 euros in public funds. The backlash was harsh, and she became a symbol of the French elite's excess. But even with all the media's attention, Carla's presence was undeniable. She wasn't just a pretty face anymore. She was a woman navigating one of the most demanding roles in the world, all while juggling personal grief and public expectations.
At the age of 30, she transitioned to music and became a critically acclaimed singer-songwriter.
After retiring from the catwalks of the fashion world, Carla Bruni made a surprising yet bold decision. She reinvented herself as a musician. It was a move that raised eyebrows. The supermodel, who had graced the covers of countless magazines and strutted down the runways of iconic designers, was now shifting to a completely different world. Music had always been a part of Carla's life. She grew up surrounded by classical composers and musicians, but this was a new frontier. Her debut album, Quelqu'un m'a dit, released in 2003, was a raw, poetic collection of French chansons that struck a chord with listeners. It wasn't just another celebrity album. It was a deeply personal project, produced by her ex, Lou Bertignac, from the rock band Telephone. Critics, who had been skeptical of her musical talents, were forced to take her seriously when the album became a multi-platinum success. But the real story of Carla's musical turn came later, as she took on a role far more complicated than just a musician. In 2008, she became the First Lady of France, marrying President Nicolas Sarkozy. Just a few months into her new role, Carla's music didn't just fade into the background, it took center stage. Despite the potential for controversy, she released Comme si de rien n'était, an album that was not only a personal statement but a bold move in the midst of the political chaos. The album was very much Carla's voice, but with her newfound position as First Lady, it was also a statement of independence. Her critics were quick to voice their concerns. Some saw it as a distraction or an inappropriate pursuit for someone in her political position. In a role that typically demands decorum and quiet diplomacy, Carla's decision to continue her music career felt out of place. But she didn't let the criticism faze her. If anything, it seemed to fuel her. She worked hard to balance her political responsibilities with her artistic aspirations. During state visits, she'd appear in chic, elegant gowns, embodying the diplomatic figurehead expected of her. But when the evening ended, she would step away from the spotlight and back into her music. The backlash was inevitable. The French press loved to focus on the perceived hypocrisy of a First Lady writing songs about love and loss while representing a country in political crisis. Her critics painted her as a figure out of touch with the realities of French politics, accusing her of flaunting her celebrity status. Yet, Carla remained unbothered by the noise. She kept releasing albums with each project showcasing a different side of her, introspective, poetic, and deeply connected to the music that had always been her true passion. It was as if she were saying, "I'm not just a model, I'm not just a politician's wife. I'm an artist, and I will not be defined by anyone else's expectations." Carla Bruni's comeback to the runway in 2017 was nothing short of iconic. Imagine this: a supermodel who had long retired, living a life of music, family, and politics, suddenly strutting down one of the world's most famous runways, Versace's. And not just any runway, this was Milan, the very heart of the fashion world, where the best of the best showcased their creations. It wasn't just about the clothes. It was about Carla proving that she wasn't some relic of the past, relegated to the archives of fashion history. At 55, she walked that runway with the kind of confidence and grace that made it seem like no time had passed. It wasn't just a fashion show, it was a reminder that Carla Bruni was far from being just a has-been. While many models fade into obscurity after they step off the runway, Carla didn't need a grand comeback tour. She didn't even need to be part of the latest trends or cycles of the industry. The fashion world still viewed her as an icon, not just because of her beauty or fame, but because of the impact she had. From the 90s onward, she was synonymous with elegance, and that connection never truly faded. Even after almost 2 decades of being away from the catwalk, her presence still carried weight. The fashion world doesn't forget its legends, and Carla's 2017 appearance was proof of that. Walking for Versace was the perfect way to reassert herself. Donatella Versace, the designer who herself is a fashion icon, knew the power Carla held. In a world where youth and novelty often dominate, Carla represented something different: timelessness. And that's exactly what she brought back onto the runway. Her walk was confident, her look was effortless, and she still managed to bring that certain aura, an intangible mix of poise, grace, and power that made her one of the most sought-after models of her generation. It wasn't just the designers who remembered her, it was the audience too. People were still talking about her presence long after the show ended. Even at an age when many would have retired for good, Carla Bruni proved that age is just a number. She wasn't trying to fit into the fashion world again. She was reminding everyone that she was and always had been a force of nature. So, what are your thoughts on this? Please let us know in the comments below.